Hey everybody, it's me again, Legal Queen LA, aka Ashley Valenzuela, and happy July. We finally made it to the middle of the summer, even though California decided to cancel the summer. Hopefully, as we keep talking about these positive stories and being positive in our energy, the sunshine will come back with us. But today I'm super excited. We have a very special guest who I had the pleasure of meeting at the United Talent Agency Hollywood in Mind Mental Health Summit that I spoke about on episode 1. Today we have Miss Brandy Menefee, and she is going to tell us everything we need to know about mental health storytelling.
Hi,
Welcome,
happy to be
welcome.
here.
I'm so happy that you are here. Again, we met at the Mental Health Hollywood in Mind Summit, and we had the pleasure of learning about everything from how AI can be used in mental health, um, producers being helpful with using therapy in helping with actors using different techniques on set. We learned about Demi Lovato's story,
Mhm.
which was really nice. We listened to a couple of artists storytelling through their music. But what is it exactly? What is one, your title, and what exactly does that mean?
Well, let's see. As a mental health storyteller, I specialize in sensitive subject matter. So I'm the person hired to interview people about their trauma, their addiction, their grief, their tough times, their struggles, how they've coped in healthy ways and unhealthy ways, how they got from bad to better. So I've worked as a producer, director, and editor um, my whole life. My career has been working behind the scenes in documentary content. So, as a mental health storyteller, I worked on a war series for Nat Geo, and I interviewed, United States military veterans about
Wow.
their most traumatic days in combat and their struggles with reentry. And then we presented those stories in the series. I've worked with trauma survivors, victims of kidnapping and sex trafficking and their hostage negotiators
Wow.
for a true crime series, grieving families, mourning communities, um, couples dealing with miscarriage for reality
Mm,
shows, you name it. So it's really about interviewing people about their mental disorders, navigating their diagnoses, how that's impacted their lives. Whatever somebody has struggled with, I call it pain and pain management, right? And sharing our stories of like, this is my story. This is how my depression or anxiety or whatever, this is what it looks like, sounds like, feels like for me. And that could be survival stories. Um, it- to me, mental health storytelling, everything's mental health storytelling, right?
absolutely.
Because stories are about you have a protagonist who is trying, who has a challenge and is trying to overcome that challenge. There's a spectrum, right? So no matter if that's a really severe mental illness or just some symptoms that are showing up one day because you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, it's it's those and everything in between.
Wow. So essentially, it is your job to take these terrible things that we've gone through and put them onto a screen for the world to see. That sounds like one a really hard job to do, but also probably really rewarding.
Super, super rewarding. I mean, I didn't, you know, years ago, I didn't decide like, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
It just kind of happened. So my work in documentary content has been everything from Snoop Dogg's murder trial to the Selena Gomez My Mind and Me documentary. And when I was really looking at my career, I saw a thread. And, you know, I've worked in music programming, I've worked with chefs in food, I've worked in adventure programming with like storm chasers, all real people, real life, true stories. But I saw this thread and I realized that whenever it had to do with really sensitive subject matter and, you know, tough times and creating a warm, safe space for people to open up about their pain, how they coped, um, their traumas, their triggers, their turning points. Every single one of those projects, I really was in my element and I really, um, felt like it was the most rewarding work. And so that's why I've decided the last few years I need to focus on this 100% of the time and not just have it be like sporadic jobs. It needs
Absolutely.
to be every job.
I love that. Now being that you are the storyteller and, you're not used to being in this seat in front of this camera, getting interviewed, what is a little bit of your story that you're comfortable telling us that led you to want to do this for other people?
Well, I've kind of always been that person who people just naturally opened up to. I
Mhm.
don't really know what it
I believe
is.
that about you. I do.
um, but like, you know, a few months back, I was at a convention with my fiance, and a friend of his came up to him and he introduced us, and then my fiance excused himself to like go use the restroom. And I probably spent maybe 5 minutes talking to his friend, who I was just meeting for the first time. And then the friend was like, "Okay, great, nice to meet you," and he walked away. And then my fiance came back and he was like, "Oh, how was that?" And I was like, "Oh, that was great, except, it's really a shame what's going on, with him and his daughter, and his family situation."
And your
And my
fiance had
fiance was
no
like,
idea.
"What are you talking about?" And I was like, "You just met
Wow.
him. Like, how did that happen?" And that's how it's always been for me. I don't know. People like to um, seem to open up or share or want to confess their secrets. And so I feel like that's been a huge value on any of the TV shows or projects that I've worked on.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it hasn't been a conscious thing. Like, I'm going to go out and do this. It just sort of happens. And so and then what I love about it is I love creating a warm, safe space for people to open up. And I love that you get to feel somebody. It's like loosening the valve just a little bit,
Mhm.
right? And so after someone shares, you know, they walk away feeling a little bit lighter. It's
Yeah.
just one more step in the healing
It's kinda like
process.
a therapy session, for sure.
It is, but I've had people who said, "Oh, that's the first time that I, shared my suicidal ideations with somebody other than a therapist, and it
Wow.
felt different and it felt great." And so I love making that space and talking to people about stuff and asking them questions you know, that they don't normally get asked. Because most of us avoid talking about or
Oh,
bringing
yeah.
bringing oh,
You lock it away.
I don't wanna make you sad, or I don't wanna bring up, like, a tough subject. And it's not like I walk around, like, "Tell me about your trauma," or like or that's all I talk about. Like, we usually know that we're going to have, some kind of conversation that,
Mhm.
it doesn't just come out of the blue, or I'm not gonna, like, assault you, or I'm not gonna be like a buzzkill at a party. But, if you have something to say that you wanna share, um you know, I'm here for it. Like, I'm all in because um, sharing your story helps you feel better. And then somebody else hearing, seeing, reading your story helps them a little bit, right?
Absolutely. And I think I've been struggling with writing or I'm sorry, finishing my own book because um maybe I don't have the capacity to fully be the storyteller while I'm the story.
That is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, see, you asked me about my story and I didn't really go there, I didn't really it's really hard to, um to really paint the picture when you're part of the story,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And so I feel like we all need a producer or somebody, a friend. It's easier when somebody else kind of helps uh draw it, draw it out of you, make you feel comfortable, ask the right questions, and help draw out the details that really are going to
Yeah.
make a difference for you to actually speak aloud, and make a difference that someone else hears, that's going to identify. Like, it's, you can get somebody to say, I'm an alcoholic, but if you can get them to explain, I used to fill my water bottle with vodka and take it to work.
That's
That
different.
that hits different, right? And it's different for them to say it, and it's different. Think about the person out there who really needs to hear that and see themselves in that. And and that's going to be, part of their story or their, healing journey, like to feel seen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's, you're making me think of all these things within myself. And we've talked before the show about, how difficult it can be to I feel like you're paving the way in the film and TV industry or the just the entertainment industry in general because you have such a different job title and such a different area of expertise that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with or a lot of projects don't even think about needing. What is it? What do you think that you would like for everybody to know about your diverse resume and why your position is so necessary.
Mm. Well, I think that that's a really good question.
Sorry, I know. I went straight
It's a really
straight
good
straight to the
question,
head.
and I'm always the interviewer. I'm never the interviewee, so it is a little bit different to like. It's like, oh, is this what people feel like when I ask them questions? Where I don't have
It
an
gets a
answer
little
like right
bit, yeah, it
away.
gets a little bit crazy. Sometimes I don't know what to say or what to ask or even what to respond. But when we were talking about this subject, we talked about not putting ourselves in boxes. And one of the very first things in the pandemic when everybody was completely out of whack and didn't know who they were or what they were going to be tomorrow, someone told
Yeah.
me, "Don't you are not defined by your career." And I was just like, "Well, I mean, it sounds good, but I just spent all this money on this piece of paper and I can't even get a job with this piece of paper." You know? But it made me sit there and think like, "Okay, I'm really not just a lawyer. I'm not just whatever." So I made this little Venn diagram of myself. And I just, did it on my little notepad in my phone. But I think we talked about how important it is to not just check one box because we have so many boxes. Me personally, if you could read my handwriting, it's not the worst, but we have the law. I'm an attorney, of course. We have the entertainment. I am pretty entertaining, if I say so myself. And then we have the social justice, which includes the mental health. And,
Mhm.
I'm a very heavy advocate of, racial injustice, homelessness, child advocacy. Those are kind of my like three main
Mm.
things that I like to focus on. And I feel like the reason I started this podcast is because I'm all of these things. And where else am I going to put all of these things right now? So here we are on the royalty room, talking about mental health storytelling. in I'm sure you could have helped me in many ways with this podcast in telling my story on episode 3, me versus me.
Well, and I'm sure that, you know, your story probably goes beyond just one episode.
Oh god.
We all have layers and chapters and, seasons of our lives as well as our whole lifetime as far as dealing with our mental health, our pain, our different struggles.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's even when you see, right, even when you see celebrities on the red carpet and we're just talking about their different creative roles. And it's
Right.
like, okay, you're an actor, you're a writer and producer and you direct, you know, which one, do you like the best? Or if you could only do one, or, we always want to just boil
Narrow
people
it down.
down to
Mhm.
just one thing, but none of us are just one thing. I will
Exactly.
never I will never understand that. So you got me thinking about my Venn diagram. And I'm definitely all about documentary storytelling, which covers a lot, right? Because that can cover,
Yeah.
a printed article, that can cover a candid photo, um, digital video, TV, film. So I'm about documentary storytelling. I'm definitely about mental health. I really was having a hard time with the third one. And it's like, I don't know, can like mac and cheese be my third?
Hell yeah. Look at me. You got me hitting the microphone. Hell yeah. Food is a huge part of me. I don't know about you, but mac and cheese sounds like it's pretty good. And my sister told me on Easter the mac and cheese I made was pretty fire.
I bet it was, and I need that recipe, or I need you
You're
to make
invited
it
to
for
the
me
next
or
to the
something,
next
so
family
thank
dinner.
you, thank
Don't
you.
worry.
But definitely, like, that's one of my coping mechanisms is food. I eat my
Yep.
feelings, and that's probably, like, my number 1 coping mechanism.
I get
Mm.
it. Honestly, when I was in law school, I'm definitely a stress eater. So if you think, they say the freshman 15, I think that's just rude. And I think we should leave our teenagers alone with their body and their diets and however they go through life. But I'm definitely a stress eater. And
Yeah.
the stress eating turns to binge depressed eating. And then I'm 20 to 40 pounds heavier and I don't know how I got here because but there's no more snacks left in the kitchen. So maybe that's how we got here. But I think, as long as it's one of our previous guests whom you met as well, Calais
Mhm.
Robinson, she really drilled it into my head that it's not like you have to cold turkey cut these things out or you have to just never do these things again. It's just about what feels good. If it doesn't feel good when you take 3 more bites, you should probably put it down. But if it feels good and it makes you feel better, have that, plate of
Yeah.
mac and cheese or whatever. But if it at the point where it doesn't feel good physically, mentally, you start to feel bad about it or guilty, maybe that's when you should, close that pantry. But as long as it feels good and as long as it's resonating with you, then you're free to do as you please
Well,
because we're grown.
that's right. And that's why I love talking to people about different ways of coping through tough times. Whether it's an afternoon or a certain chapter or an entire lifetime. Because you can get inspiration from other people, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like maybe there's somebody out there who doesn't know how awesome mac and cheese is that somehow it can, bring you a moment of relief. I wouldn't say that mac and cheese is gonna solve any of your problems
But it's
whatsoever.
called comfort food for a reason. You can't take that one away. But coming back to your part of your Venn diagram was the documentaries.
Mhm,
What was it like? What was the experience like working with the Selena Gomez documentary? I know it's a little bit different than, working with some of the other things. What was
mhm.
that experience like? Um, or what was your favorite part or the hardest part?
Um, well, I went to Africa. So if you've seen Selena Gomez, My Mind and Me, she goes to Kenya. And my favorite part of working on that documentary was going to Kenya and interviewing mental health specialists and everyday people in a big city like Nairobi, and
Wow.
then everyday people in really remote villages about their mental health challenges and how you deal with your mental health challenges when you live in a mud hut
Right.
and you don't have access to resources, how you deal with mental health challenges when you live in a country where suicide is illegal. So there's
Wow.
no suicide hotlines in Kenya. And I heard a story about somebody who was in so much pain and felt so trapped by their pain that they wanted to end their life. And they tried to do so, and it didn't work. It failed, right? Um, and um, instead of calling medical team and getting help that way, um, they were arrested
Wow.
and in prison. Now,
Ooh.
because it was illegal for them to try to end their life. So anyway, um, it was really fascinating getting strangers to open up about their mental health challenges in Kenya, and then overall working on a documentary where you can see how each time people talk about the tough stuff, whether that's Selena or the people around her, the people that she encounters, just everything gets a little bit lighter and a little bit brighter for all of us, right? But it was actually working on the Selena Gomez documentary that cemented my passion and purpose for mental health storytelling.
Wow.
Because I was literally sitting in a mud hut in this remote African village talking about struggle and suicide with strangers using a Swahili translator. And
Wow.
then that's where I saw all of my different um, jobs in production like flash before me that were like, you've been here before, you've talked to strangers about their struggles before and how they were able to turn a corner. And I was like, I am in my element. And I'm in my
Everything's kind of
element
in alignment.
in a mud hut, halfway around the globe talking to complete strangers using a translator. And this feels I'm totally in my lane. And so that's when I decided, like, this really does need to be every job. Every job needs to be talking about this and doing that on all different platforms for
Mhm.
TV, films, digital, print, whatever. We were at the Hollywood in Mind inaugural summit, which was so
That
cool.
was so cool.
And there were so many great panels and speakers and conversations happening, and essentially the message that day and the message every day is like, we need to share our stories, the
Yeah.
power of our personal stories. Let's share our stories so that we're normalizing having these conversations, and it doesn't have to be so hush hush, or people don't have to feel like it's like this taboo thing. But what I find is that there's with these panels and webinars and everything, we all talk about the importance of telling our stories. But then I kind of feel like that's where the conversation
No one told the
stops.
story.
We're like,
No,
where
no
are we
one
telling
told
the
the stories.
stories? Where are we telling the
That's
stories?
so
So I'm
true.
like constantly looking for like new pathways and platforms and ways to help other people share their stories, whether that's in you know, a big mental health, feature like Selena's
Mhm.
documentary, or a mental health nonprofit job recruitment, video,
Right.
or a blog or whatever, but it's like I am here to help people tell their stories. And but can we talk a little bit more about like how do we do this? You
Yeah.
know, we talk about the importance of these stories, but how and where are we doing it?
Do you know offhand, um, even probably 5 other folks who are doing the same task that you're doing?
No.
That I thought that that would be the answer, and we're smiling and we're laughing, but that's just so upsetting. What do we do? Do you start a company and train others in how to do the same thing? Because I will sign up.
You know, that's a great question. No one's asked me that question. And so that's something to
Think
really think
about,
about for
yeah.
sure. Because when I tell people, "Oh yes, I specialize in mental health storytelling." Everyone's "Oh my, that's just great. Oh my gosh, and thank you for the work that you're doing." But I create a lot of my own work, but
Yeah,
in seeking those kinds of projects, it's not that easy,
easy, yeah.
you
I can
know?
imagine.
It's as far as having it be like a concentrated, like I want every job to be a mental health storytelling
Mhm.
job. So, but it may not be presented that way,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have to have, a headline mental health. So like last year, I worked in post production as a story producer on a biography series, spotlighting women athletes. But these stories, the interviews were already shot, right? So I was, all sad that I couldn't have I
Right.
couldn't do them, but they were fascinating stories about how these women athletes became uh, you know, elite athletes and the struggles that they had to overcome, and so much of their stories dealt with trauma and depression. And
Absolutely.
so I wanted to be part of that, so I worked as a story producer in post to help put those together. I worked as a story producer in post on a reality show, putting because I said, what's the main storyline this season? And they said multiple miscarriages.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm in. I want to be part of like helping craft and present those stories.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not like people are posting jobs like this is a mental health storytelling job,
Right.
but it's about trying to to find, different ways and different stories, and also trying to open people's eyes that like isn't almost everything, couldn't that be considered a mental health story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think whenever we were at the summit, they had that panel of producers who were saying that they're now implementing therapy in production whenever they're dealing with really hard scenes or really hard movies throughout. Um, and they were saying, we have licensed therapists on set to be able to talk to the actors and actresses. I think that that's a really good step that we could be moving towards.
For sure.
That I remember the first show that I watched that really kind of stood out to me as mental health, and this could kind of affect viewers or this could affect the actors in there, was The Secret Life of the American Teenager. And I was a teenager, I think, when this came out. And at the end of every episode was a disclaimer, if someone is
Mhm.
struggling with X, Y, and Z, here's the number. And that's the first kind of show where I noticed that aspect. We're caring about mental health, or we're caring about how these scenes and these, teenage pregnancy could be affecting the viewers. And I thought that that was really a good a good start, and now to hear that they are having therapists and or different mental health advocates on sets, I think that that's really good as well, especially for the scripted things. You generally work with non-scripted,
I do.
biographical.
But it's I mean, it's important, right, that we're just, it's such a great time right now for mental health
Mhm.
because, you know, even though it might feel like a buzzword at times, we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
It's becoming like,
And
we're
I don't
more
remember
comfortable.
this ever before the pandemic, really. I don't remember mental health being such a big topic that people like to talk about.
I
It was
gotta
kinda more
say,
secretive.
it's one of the blessings from the pandemic because now we collectively have all experienced the pandemic and lockdown, and you couldn't not be affected
Right,
by that.
right.
Whether you were feeling isolation or overwhelmed, depression, anxiety, whatever. So we all now know that, like, at least, you know, we can talk about that, and everybody has a little bit of an understanding of like what that looked like, sounded like, and felt like for them, you know? But I think it's really, really important to have people on set to help in any way possible, scripted or unscripted. Because I worked on a war series, um, and we were watching helmet camera footage, right,
Oh,
from
man.
combat veterans, and essentially the show was to interview um, soldiers and Marines about their footage and their stories behind, their daily lives and their life at war, right? But the staff, like, we're sitting there for 10 hours a day watching all of this footage
That's
that can be
scary.
really, really hard to
Yeah.
watch. We're the ones interviewing and hearing um these really, really dark, heavy, tough details. And this job was a number of years ago, but it was only recently that someone said, "How were you supported on that show?
Right.
Like, did your production company provide, mental health support for you guys? Because you're dealing with all the footage." And I mean, there was nothing.
Of course not.
I'm hoping now if there was a war series today, or even like the kidnapping show that I worked on, I would really hope that if we were doing those shows, in 2023 and beyond, that production companies would have somebody available
In-house.
to help, because,
That's
it was
true.
hard.
That's true. I didn't even think about it, went straight over my head. You also need those support systems on set, even with whenever you went to Kenya and you were doing those interviews, that's the blessing of the and the curse of the empath, however you may choose to say it. But I definitely get that because I'm usually in my family and my friend group, I'm usually the one everybody's just throwing all their stuff at for me to either untangle, fix, listen to, advise, etc. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, oh, I'm exhausted. What do I do?
Right? Because then what do you do? Where do you put all of that?
Yeah, yeah, and, even with watching shows, Secret Life of the American Teenager, that was one thing, but then when I was in law school, 13 Reasons Why came out, and Selena Gomez was one of the producers, and I distinctly remember there was this one night, I don't know if it was, the episode where the main character, gets to her story about committing suicide, but I was face down on my carpet on the floor, just boo-hoo crying because not only was the show so sad, but I'm sad about my, depression or suicidal ideations and the things that it brought up for me, and then I'm thinking about how are the actors okay with portraying these things, and then I'm thinking about all the viewers who are of the high school age because it was a high school show, and it's really, really, really alarming, like, how triggering a fictional show can be. Um, but then I couldn't even imagine portraying those things, I'm not in the acting world at all, but, like, I think do you think that it is important regardless to have, in-house therapy available on set for the documentaries and the scripted and all of these types of things for the actors and for yourself in your position?
Definitely. Any support that can be provided to anybody at any time, because and I try to use that word support instead of help,
Mhm.
because I think that people are more open to
Yeah.
receiving support than receiving or asking for help, right? But anytime that that you can support somebody in a professional role or personally with their mental health is crucial, because it affects how you show up to work,
Right.
whether that's in front of the camera or behind the camera or at a desk, right? It affects how you show up for your friends and your family and for yourself. And ultimately, when we're feeling good, we make good decisions.
Mhm.
And when we feel bad, we do not make good decisions,
Or rational.
small and big,
Yeah.
right? So think about it. If we're all feeling good, what is the world going to look like when, for the most part, like we're feeling good, we're feeling our best, we're feeling healthy, physically and mentally strong. We're feeling like we can share, we're seen, we don't have to
Possibilities are
hide,
endless.
we don't have to perform. I mean, the ripple effect is incredible.
I love that. I love that. What do you think, or what would you like to see, um, for the industry, the entertainment industry as a whole, moving forward, from where you are sitting?
You know, I would love for us to continue telling stories about our mental health challenges and how we turned a corner and got from bad to better, whether that's, documentary storytelling or, fictional scripted stories. But they don't have to come with a mental health headline, right? They are just stories. And
Mhm.
so I feel like everybody in the mental health space all has the same intention, right? Which is to rebrand or redefine mental health,
Mhm.
right? So we're seeing it differently. People say destigmatize and the stigma. I don't really love to use that word because I feel like every time we say mental health and stigma, we're just
Adding to
reinforcing
it. Yep.
that negative
I
association.
agree.
But I know what our intention is. Our intention is rebranding, redefining mental health so that when we talk about our mental health, your mental health, I ask you, it's the same as me asking you about your bad knee or your heart condition or your high cholesterol
Right.
or your eyesight or whatever. Um, so I'm just I'm hoping with the industry that the intention is to share stories about our mental health journeys, but not label them mental health. This is mental health because it goes back to like putting something in a box,
Yeah.
right? Or just defining it as one thing. Because there's a lot of people who hear mental health and then they tune out or they like
Mm.
slowly back
They're like,
away
"Ew."
because they're like, oh God, no, 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 this is gonna be like heavy and dark and I don't want to go
Right.
there. Or this doesn't, oh, that totally doesn't
Not
apply to
me.
me.
Couldn't be me.
And it's like, no, no, no. It affects us all, or it at least affects somebody that you care about. And somebody that you care about is struggling and you probably don't even know it. But if we're talking about it, if we're watching shows and movies and reading articles and you have, you know, entertainers talking about it and you have scripted series about it, but that it's not necessarily labeled a
Yeah,
mental health story, then I think that that will really, move the needle.
I agree. I definitely um with the boxing in of things, like, why do I just have to be a lawyer? Why do I just have to be, the other box? I check the other box for my race. I'm other. Okay? Where you don't need to know anything else, but I do not fit in that box, that box, that box, or that box. So Imma check the one I do fit, which is ambiguous, other, and, it's easy to do the comedy, the romance, the drama. um, I feel like there doesn't need to be a subsection of also this is a drama, but it's a mental health drama.
Right,
Why
right.
yeah, why do we have to do that?
I mean, the thing is, it's important to categorize things for people who are seeking that, because
Mhm,
there are people who are like, no, I want to watch something, in the mental health space, or I want to watch something about addiction or self
mhm.
harm because that's been, that person's experience and they want to, identify with that. But I was talking to somebody last week at a conference and she said, you know, we have different appetites for vulnerability.
Mm,
And so somebody who might really, really want to watch like the Demi Lovato documentary where she is so open and honest and
yep,
raw and every little detail she really goes there. It's dark and it's deep and it's fantastic. Somebody may really need that and want that, but that may be way too much for somebody else who needs to kind of, tiptoe
yeah.
into the deep end.
And I feel like we're all kind of there's no straight path for, anyone dealing with anything traumatic or anything from their past, whatever. Like, you may today need something that heavy because you're okay to receive it. You're open to receive it, and it's fine today. But next week, you may not be in that same space, and it may be far too triggering. And it could open up some wounds you weren't ready to open up.
I'm so glad you said that because I've I have dealt with a lot of grieving in my life.
Mhm.
I've known 46 people who have died.
Oh my gosh.
So 46
I'm so
people,
sorry.
thank you, 46 people who I've known and interacted with who have
Mhm.
died. 8 of those have been suicides,
Wow.
right? So with all the grieving that I've experienced in my life, I've really understood the power of the question, how are you doing today? Because with grief, same with trauma, depression, everything, it's different every day. It shows up differently every day. And so,
Absolutely.
you know, just because it's been, 5 years since, the death of that person, maybe it's hitting me really hard today. Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't want to watch that thing because it's going to trigger me and I do and it doesn't trigger me. But then, you know, I a song comes on and then
And all
I'm a
hell
total
breaks
wreck.
loose. Yeah.
Right? You just never know.
I agree. Unfortunately, I have a very similar um history with grief. It's far too many instances. From the hometown that I come from. I actually just got back from not too long ago, and that is it's like death, drugs, and destruction is like the theme of my hometown. And
Oh.
while I was there, I was like, there needs to be a documentary about this place. And it's so because I've been really working on myself over the last year. Like, I've actually taken the time to personally and adamantly work on myself and my healing and my mental health and my peace. And I'm obviously still working because it's a never ending process. But going back and seeing the way that people think and the way that people live and the way that people talk and the way that things have been for all of these decades and years, and we wonder why you look up the town on Google and it says an American ghost town, and the population continues to decline, although no one is leaving. What does that mean? We're dying, so it's so much up here that I haven't even processed from just going back for a couple of days or a week and a half, whatever it was, that I want to just save the city now, you know? And how do I do that? Telling the stories. So we have plenty to talk about, but it's just like it's the how are you doing? I've learned to check in with myself every day. How do you feel right now? What does that mean? Because how do you feel? Good. How do you feel? Good. And I try to implement all these things that I've been learning out here back home, and people are just like, "I'm good. What else? What do you want?" And I'm just like, "Okay, now you're yelling and now you're cussing. I just wanted you to breathe. I just wanted you to like do some deep breathing with me.
Right.
That's all." And it's hard to check in with others when you can't check in with yourself. Um But how do you even check in with yourself when you never learned how to check in with yourself?
Well, I really commend you for doing the work because it takes strength, it takes courage to be able to, sit with your feelings,
Oh, it sucks.
sit with your grief,
Oh, it sucks.
sit with your trauma. It is so, so, painful, but that's how, they say, the only way out is through, right? It's like that's how you find, peace. That's how you walk a little bit lighter in this world. That's how you, can really show up and be there for others is doing the work yourself. So I really commend you for doing that.
Thank you.
But I for Mental Health Action Day this year, because May is Mental Health Month, I created a 30-second video because I was like, we all we all have people that we care about in our lives who are struggling and we have no idea.
Mhm.
And then we know that like mental health is like this hot topic and that we're supposed to, reach out and, and check on our friends, but how do we do that?
Right.
Or how do we check on our strong friends or our seemingly happy friends? Because you may not know how to start that conversation. You may not even want to have that conversation. You may feel like you don't have the bandwidth to
Right.
deal with
Right.
whatever their answer may be. But I was like, you know what? You can like text somebody a heart, like text them an orange heart or whatever. Just let
Mhm.
them know that you're thinking about them,
I
right?
care.
At least, do something, take some action or something that that can open that conversation if, if you don't know how, just text somebody a heart, right?
Send some love.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on the show, first of all, but I also really appreciate you and what you do for the entertainment industry as a whole. I think it's very important that we create more of you so we can
Thank you.
create a better place and a happier place and a lighter place to get these stories out, because as embarrassed as I may be, maybe about where I come from or what I've done or who I was or whatever, or sad or scared or whatever it may be, it has to come out. So thank you for everything that you're doing for yourself. One, because you couldn't do it for anybody else
Mm.
if you weren't doing it for yourself. So Thank you very much, Brandy, for joining us in the royalty room. And
Thank you.
let the people know once again how to find you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to hear next. And let us know maybe any questions that you have from Brandy, because I know we covered a lot, but there's so much more to be talked about.
So much more. Looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Yes, ma'am. And what is your Instagram one more time?
My Instagram is mental health storyteller.
Simple. Keep it simple. So thank you again, and join us back on the royalty room 2 Mondays from today. So thank you.